Hey, are you Adam Graham?
The very same. And this is my old-time radio snack wagon.
Welcome to the old-time radio snack wagon, where we serve up a bite-sized portion of old-time radio. And now, here's your snack wagon host, Adam Graham.
Welcome to the old-time radio snack wagon. Well, growing up in the 80s and 90s, I watched a lot of old cartoons, particularly Looney Tunes. There was something timeless about those cartoons and their core story, and their jokes would hold up for decades to come. At the same point, there were things that a later viewer just wouldn't get because it was a pop culture topical reference from the era in which the program was made. And it went right over all of us kids watching it in the 80s and 90s. We just kind of ignored it and went on to the next gag. For example, there were several times in Looney Tunes cartoons where, sometimes out of nowhere even, a mother would call out, "Henry?" And I'd have no idea what that was about. One advantage of listening to Golden Age radio programs is you finally have this moment. Yeah, I get what that was about. Because the cry was a reference to the opening of the Aldrich family radio series, which centered around that awkward teenage boy, Henry Aldrich. The series ran for 14 years on radio. There were 11 movies made, as well as a TV program and a comic book. But before that, Henry Aldrich was a minor character in the Broadway play, What a Life. The character was played by 20-year-old Ezra Stone, who also served as a production assistant. The character was not all that important in the original play. Stone was billed 20th. But critics and audiences noticed his performance, giving credence to that old saying about there being no small parts in the theater. Stone caught the eye of Rudy Vallee, who was perhaps the 1930s biggest radio star and its biggest star maker. Vallee asked Clifford Goldsmith to adapt the play into sketches for the radio program. So today we're going to listen to the first of those sketches. Here now is Rudy Vallee to introduce Ezra Stone in the first radio appearance of Henry Aldrich from April 18th, 1938 on the Royal Gelatin Hour.
An argument rages along Broadway as to whether Of Mice and Men or Our Town should win this year's Pulitzer Prize. There is, however, no quarrel about which is the year's funniest play. The Laughter Prize goes with a general loud guffaw to the brand-new George Abbott hit, What a Life. This thoroughly enjoyable comedy of high school doings introduces to importance a new personality, young Ezra Stone, who is with us tonight. We think you'll be hearing that name again and again in the years just ahead. And so we are first to bring you Ezra Stone with 4 members of the New York cast in What a Life. Mr. Stone plays Henry Aldrich, the most unfortunate student in Central High. Too many things happen to Henry. His chief misfortune, however, is the fact that his father was a Phi Beta Kappa student at Princeton. Henry positively does not inherit his father's scholarly ways. On the contrary, in the opinion of his teachers, he possesses not the slightest degree of brain power whatever. This point of view his parents do not share. Henry's one talent is for drawing. Right now, he's in trouble over that, having been rash enough to choose his ancient history teacher as a comic model. He's in trouble, too, because he wants desperately to go to a dance and has no money. His mother has promised him that money if he passes an ancient history test highest in his class. This is an absurd requirement, but Henry does his best. At the moment, his teacher is conferring with the principal, Mr. Bradley, and the assistant principal, Mr. Nelson. Subject, Henry.
Will you listen to me, Mr. Bradley? The examination was over at 10. At 10:15, I was called to the phone. It was Mrs. Aldrich, daring to ask me if he had passed the highest in his class. The highest. I tell you, I refuse to be intimidated by any parent, no matter what he is president of.
Now, if
I'm
I were
dictated to every minute of my life. You and the Board of Education, and the legislature, and that clock. And now it's the president of the PTA telling me that I can't...
That's enough, Mr. Patterson. What did you say to Mrs. Aldrich?
I hung up on her.
And you will write her a note of apology today, Mr. Patterson. You know the rules as well as I do.
The rules? Do the rules say anything about my posing for a series of portraits? Oh, yes, I've heard about that. I've got one for you, too, Mr. Bradley. Here. It's a drawing of a whale with glasses. Look. Moby Bradley. You should see it, Nelson.
I saw it yesterday. I thought he caught the angle of the glasses rather well.
That will be all, thank you.
Am I to assume that you're going to let the boy get away with this just because his father happens to be the
There's
president?
nothing more to be said. I have far more important matters to discuss than Henry Aldrich's paper.
But I just want to tell you that I've examined it already.
I'll take your word for it that it was terrible. How much did you give him?
I gave him 96.
96 what?
96%, Nelson.
Inflation is here.
Do you have your glasses, Mr. Bradley?
Well, what of it?
Look at Henry's paper. Now look at this other paper.
What do you do, take the examination twice?
Whose is the second paper?
That one belongs to a student by the name of George Biglow.
Take a look at them, Mr. Nelson.
That's on the level I teach geometry.
Let's see. Writes George, the Roman Empire contributed many things to civilization. Architecture, art, sculpture, literature, the ways of government, and daily baths. Writes Henry, the Roman Empire contributed many things to civilization. Architecture, sculpture, art, literature, the ways of government, and daily baths.
There you are, identical.
You're wrong. In this one, she contributed sculpture and art, and in this one, she contributed art and sculpture. Apparently, it was done with mirrors.
Mr. Nelson.
Why, it's Henry in person. What is it, Henry?
Miss Pike sent me, Mr. Nelson. She says her ventilating system still doesn't work. She says she's having a chill or something.
Mr. Bradley wants to speak with you, Henry.
With me?
Yes. Come here a moment. I understand you took a history examination this morning.
Yes, sir. In Roman history.
Who sat next to you when you took that examination?
Well, Harry Wood sat right in front of me. And Joe Cameron sat on my right side. And I think it was Marnie Davis who sat right in back of me.
And who, may I ask, sat on your left?
On my left side?
You have a left side, haven't you?
Yes, sir. That was... Oh, I remember. It was George Bigelow.
George Biglow.
Yes, sir, George Bigelow.
You didn't by any chance receive any help from him in this, did you?
No, sir. Gee whiz, no.
Would you mind if I should ask you a few questions from this examination paper?
No, sir.
When did Rome fall?
Rome fell in 300 A.D.
I always supposed that it fell in 410 A.D.
Oh, sure, that's right, 410 A.D. But she really started to go to pieces about 300 A.D. Well, at least that's the way it seems to me.
Then why did you put 410 on your paper?
Did I put 410 on my paper? Well, I guess that's right, then.
What territory did Rome rule at the height of her power?
Does that mean...
It means exactly what it says.
Well, there was the city of Rome, of course. And don't tell me, Mr. Bradley.
I have no intention of telling you.
And gee whiz, I'm all mixed up. I'm not even sure of my own name.
And you still insist that you received no help?
Well, I didn't get any help. I didn't cheat, I tell you. I'm just mixed up, that's all. I never was any good at anything oral, Mr. Bradley, even under favorable conditions. But I didn't cheat.
Then how do you account for parts of your paper being word for word the same as George Biglow's?
There were, Mr. Bradley? It must have been a coincidence.
Henry, this is your last chance. Are you going to admit that you cheated?
But I didn't.
Very well. We'll say no more. We'll give you 0 on that one, 0 on that one, 0, 0, 0, 0 on that one, and a large round 0 for the entire paper.
I can't take that home. I can't do it. It isn't fair.
Miss Shea,
Yes, sir.
will you take a letter, please?
Yes, Mr. Bradley.
To this young man's father and mother. This is formally to advise you that we are finding it necessary to suspend your son from Central High School. He is hereby forbidden to attend any further classes for a period of 60 days.
60 days? My gosh.
Oh, Mr. Bradley, I've been waiting to tell you. Miss Pike phoned again. She says something must be done about her system.
All right. I'll go up and investigate, but you come too, Miss Shea.
Well, Mr. Bradley, do you mind if I have a word with Henry here in private?
Well, go ahead, but my decision is final.
You're not going to smooth it over, Nelson.
No, don't worry.
I notice you don't even permit him to take chemistry.
What do you want to do, blow the roof off the place?
I've got a class now, but I'll follow this up.
I'll follow away, old boy. Well, Henry, here we are.
Yes, we certainly are.
Did you cheat in that examination? Well, I just wanted you to know, in case you did cheat, that you probably aren't the first fellow who ever did. My suspicion is that quite a few have tried it in their time. In fact, just between ourselves, something tells me that everyone who's ever been to school has tried it at least once. At any rate, all the bright ones have.
Did you ever?
Of course. Did you think I was one of the stupid ones? I tried it on several occasions. And I got away with it very nicely, thank you. Much more cleverly than someone did in this case.
You cheated in an examination?
Of course. After all, if you have any salt in your blood, you have to try everything once, don't you? The disgrace is in failing to see that what you gain by it isn't that, compared with what you lose.
I know cheating's bad.
That's just the half of it. Denying it when you're caught is just as bad.
Sure.
Yeah, it's stupid.
Yeah. Well, I cheated.
Did you? To be quite honest, I thought you did.
I didn't mean to, though. I didn't mean to tell you either.
What was the idea?
I had to. I couldn't help it.
I see. In other words, you saw Bigelow's paper there beside you and the temptation was too great.
That's not it. I'm an Aldrich.
What is it, some sort of a secret order?
Well, it isn't really anything. All the other Aldriches have just always led in their classes. And I had to be the highest, or my mother wouldn't give me $2 to go to the dance tomorrow night. And I'd already asked somebody.
Look here, Henry.
Yes, sir?
Whoever told you that you had to go through life apologizing for every move you make?
Apologizing?
Listen, there never was a human being who didn't make a few mistakes. Perhaps not quite as many as you, but we all make some. And if you get 10% in an examination that everyone else gets 100 in, don't deny it. Admit it. You can still be just as good no matter how many dates you don't remember. The trouble with you is you're ashamed of yourself. I know more history than you ever thought of knowing. But do you know what you can do that I can't do?
What?
Draw a picture of Mr. Patterson that looks like Mr. Patterson.
Is that something to be proud of?
You can't believe anything good about yourself, can you? I talked with your art teacher yesterday. She says you might just possibly have some talent.
For what?
You see that? It's a habit. Now listen. If you could do anything on the face of this earth, what would you like to do as a life job?
I don't know.
Well, what do you think you'd like to do?
I've never really thought about it. I guess go to Princeton.
Good Lord, you don't consider 4 years at Princeton a life's work, do you?
Not an ideal life's work.
Now, if I could fix it so that you could spend the next 60 days over at the Southside Trade School where they have a special course in art, just to see how you like it, what would you think?
But my mother...
Do you want to make a bet that she won't let you go?
How much will you bet?
Anything you want.
I'll bet you $2.
All right.
Say, Mr. Nelson, you couldn't lend me $2, could you? I've just got to go to that dance.
What girl are you taking?
Barbara Pearson. She's the president of our junior class. Gee whiz, she even wrote one of the school cheers.
Not Oski Wow Wow.
My gosh, no, if she'd write a darn thing like that. Now, she wrote the one that goes, Central, be gentle, be brutal, be central. Then there's a long yay! How about it?
Well, for such a woman, Henry, no sacrifice on your part is too great. If I lent you that money, that would be too easy. You go ahead and win that bet for Barbara.
Okay, Mr. Nelson. I'll win it. Or die trying.
Good boy.
Welcome back. And that's how Americans who weren't blessed enough to walk the Great White Way and get a ticket to a Broadway show first encountered Henry Aldrich. It's an interesting sketch with not a lot of humor. In fact, the teacher had the bigger part, which made it a funny choice to introduce Stone as Aldrich. Wow, he did great being lectured to. Thankfully, there'd be other sketches that would give Stone more to work with. Still, it captured an interesting attitude and offered an answer as to how to deal with kids who just can't make the traditional school environment work. And it also pointed to the importance not of being perfect and never making a mistake, but being willing to own up to mistakes, particularly if you're caught as badly as Henry was. A 60-day suspension is definitely a hard punishment, although many people get expelled for what he did. As I said, there would be more Henry Aldrich sketches. There'd be a few more on Rudy Vallee's program, and then he'd spend 30 weeks in regular sketches on the Kate Smith Hour, where many elements of the character as well as the Aldrich family series would be refined, including the famous call of Henry's mother. The Aldrich family would become a standalone radio series in 1939, and Henry Aldrich would become one of the biggest pop culture names of the 1940s. It's time for me to close up the old snack wagon. But don't worry, we'll be back with another serving of old-time radio goodness before you know it. If you want to enjoy some of our longer form podcasts, you can feast away at my website at greatdetectives.net. Your emails are also welcome at adam@snackwagon.net.
The Old Time Radio Snack Wagon comes to you from Boise, Idaho. Your host is Adam Graham. Sound production is by Rhines Media, LLC. You can listen to past episodes of the Old Time Radio Snack Wagon as well as connect on social media at our website at snackwagon.net. Email suggestions for episodes to adam@snackwagon.net. This has been the Old Time Radio Snack Wagon.
Until next time, goodbye.